Cut to the chase. This is a brief clip from the YoJoe Show Podcast, where we dive into everything: politics, tech, aviation, space, science, health, and medicine. Stick around for conversation that clips right to what matters.
So anybody who hasn't watched that video definitely should. It's also worth adding that in addition to Mr. Mamdani being a very well-spoken communist, he is also a jihadist. And we've discussed this in the past. He's met with terrorists. He promotes terrorism. The first place he went after he won the election was to a mosque to help chant pro-terror slogans. I don't know what happened to New York, but boy, are they heading in the wrong direction, don't you think?
Yeah, I definitely think, and I did see that video. It's like Bernie Sanders, who is an independent, democratic, socialist, Marxist, definitely, who he used to always be the tax the millionaire, tax the rich. But considering he's a millionaire and he owns several very high-end homes now, the slogan has changed to tax the billionaires with a B. Okay, so it's to show the level of hypocrisy is ridiculous, but it is what it is, and that's what they're going to campaign on. They're going to say whatever they want to say, and they just figure people won't bother checking or doing the math to figure out what they're saying makes no sense. Look, all I could say is in other parts of the world that have tried socialism, it doesn't really work, and communism doesn't work out too well for the people living there. It does for the elite. So they're all anti-fascist, anti-this, anti-that, but they're basically trying to create a ruling class that would control everything. Yeah, they would control the grocery stores. Yeah, they would control the homes. They would basically force people to sell their homes to the city. How ridiculous is that?
Mamdani is trying to do that now in New York. Basically, the opposite is not allowing people to sell homes unless it's to like some government, some city type of something.
So what has happened is they've gone after some real estate owners that own apartments and so forth, and they're saying, look, we have to take this over. We have to be given the right of first refusal. Before you can offer it to anyone else, you got to offer it to us first. We can see if we want to get it for, of course, a reduced rate, because this owner has so many violations that they've not corrected. The problem in part is it's not that all these property owners are angels themselves, but the city apparently has been made it very difficult for some of these violations to be corrected, and tons of fines start accumulating to force a sale. So that's what happens when you have government doing things for their own benefit, not for the benefit of all. But listen, it's not just here in the United States. Around the world, we've had obviously governments that have been doing things that are not exactly the way we would want to see them, and they do affect us. People think just because it's on the other side of the world, it may have no direct impact. That may or may not be true, but it will have some far-reaching secondary, tertiary impact. And as we proceed along, I'd like to play some of the clips from what's happening more on a global stage, if you're ready for that.
Let's take a look.
All right, here we go.
President Trump said a large armada of U.S. warships heads toward Iran, quote, just in case, nearly a month after anti-government protests began in the country. According to defense officials, the USS Abraham Lincoln and its escort ships were in the Indian Ocean as of Friday morning. Last week, the president appeared to tone down threats against the Iranian regime after he said he'd heard on good word the killings had stopped and the government was halting planned executions of accused protesters. One U.S.-based organization estimates more than 4,000 protesters have been killed so far and that the figure will likely rise. Sam Vinograd joins us now. She's a CBS News national security contributor. So, Sam, what do you make of the president's continued reference toward potential military force against Iran?
Lindsay, as we learned the last time that President Trump struck Iran, military action is really never off the table when it comes to President Trump. And there is certainly a lot of chatter amongst security analysts that President Trump has just been biding his time and waiting to put more military assets in place prior to engaging in another military strike against Iran. So while we all wish that we had a crystal ball, we don't, and the president is certainly unpredictable when it comes to using the military assets at his disposal. But we do know this: as of this weekend, there will be more military assets in the region that could serve to deter Iran from responding with force if they are attacked by the United States, and could come to the aid of other U.S. service members currently in the region. So the U.S. will have a much larger military footprint in the region as of this weekend.
argue that he's wrong, that Trump really is pulling us back from these rules of the road that we created and that have created so much stability and prosperity around the world.
The problem is that all of these people need us more than we need them, and they have taken advantage of us while we have been the ones subsidizing them. And what the president is saying, and what the entire Trump administration went to Davos to say, is that this world order in which you globalize everything, you ship good jobs overseas to China, you import millions of people to undercut workers here, is over. We're done being your patsies. We're done being in a situation where NATO needs us more than we need them, and yet somehow they are dictating the terms of the relationship. That is over.
Let's be real. I mean, you're doing a very good job of repeating President Trump's rhetoric, but let's be realistic. For 80 years, we have built and led this international security system,
and we have
been the biggest. We have been the biggest beneficiaries of it.
We are been immiserated as a result of it, and no more. That is the whole point.
Max, we are the richest and most. We are the richest, safest, most powerful country in the world.
All I will say, Max, is good luck in making that argument about you, because I have said this to her many a time.
What was your reaction to what he had to say about you?
None. I think he said something very different last night. I didn't hear new scum. I heard new green scam. But I mean, come on, it was remarkably boring. It was remarkably insignificant. He was never going to invade Greenland. It was never real. So that was always a fade. And so he says, well, we should negotiate. Well, everybody here has been willing to negotiate for a year. So it had fire and fury signified absolutely nothing. Even by Trump standards, I was rather curious.
You criticized world leaders when you got here, saying that some of these European leaders had capitulated to the president.
In the past.
You said you should have brought knee pads. What have you heard from them since then?
A lot. I heard a surprising number say, glad you made those comments. The exact opposite of what you might expect. They needed to hear those comments and to know that people in America have that point of view and perspective. And so I was very...
Do you want to name names?
Absolutely, but I'm not. But I would love to.
For some time now, and for some strange reason, the West began to turn its back on the ideas of liberty. That is why in this same place in 2024, I stated that the West was in danger as a result of having embraced increasing doses of socialism in its most hypocritical form, which is wokeism. In turn, in 2025, I explained the mental parasites sown by the left in humanity. However, 2026 is the year in which I bring you good news. The world has begun to awaken. The best proof of this is what is happening in the Americas with the rebirth of the ideas of liberty. Therefore, the Americas will be the beacon of light that will once again illuminate the entire West, thereby repaying the civilizational debt with expressions of gratitude towards the foundations in Greek philosophy, Roman law, and Judeo-Christian values. We have a better future ahead, but that better future exists only if we return to the roots of the West, which means returning to the ideas of liberty. May God bless the West. May the forces of heaven be with us. And long live freedom, damn it. Thank you very much.
Long live freedom, damn it.
Yeah, amen. And respect to Javier Milei. He is a remarkable president. He's truly an inspiration. I love his optimism. The things he's doing in Argentina are really inspiring. And he really has a phenomenal moral compass. And this comes through every time. Last year, he gave an amazing speech, basically beheading the World Economic Forum in front of the World Economic Forum. And again, there's no problem of a location where decision makers come to talk important things. That isn't the problem. The problem is the whole kind of globalist idea that was behind it for the past 2 decades that now has basically been evaporated under the weight that is the Trump administration and others, including Javier Milei and his phenomenal speech there last year. His positive message is really inspirational. He even quoted like the weekly Torah portion, which was an inspiration to a lot of people as well. He's just a really inspiring president, really, with everything that he's doing. He's very well learned, and he's a phenomenal economist. We saw in that Legacy Media piece where she said that the amount of protesters dead in Iran was 3,000 to 5,000, maybe 4,000. those are the low end of the numbers that the Iranian state media are publishing, that they're admitting. So Iran, according to Reuters, Iranian official numbers are at least 5,000. And this is really the low end of that, though, according to Iran International, which is the most trustworthy source on the topic, the numbers have now easily surpassed 36,500, likely surpassed 45,000. And there are numbers that it could have passed already 70,000. And the brave, heroic people of Iran are not stopping to protest. Yes, the protests are not as strong as it was in the past 2 weeks, but the people are just not giving up. And we've seen for a few weeks now, they've been attacking IRGC centers and besieged headquarters and stuff like that, and even jails, freeing other prisoners. And it really has been inspiring. They're truly fighting tyranny. And what the Iranian government is doing in return is terrifying. They're putting snipers on the roofs and they're just mowing people down. They're sending squads of gunmen into the streets, just mass murdering people. Sometimes when there are protests, many times when there are no protests at all, they're going to the hospitals and they're massacring all the protesters in the hospitals, as well as putting live people into body bags and just killing them that way. Even they've been taking people who are arrested and shoving them into big halls and then just mass murdering everybody in these halls. It is horrific and terrifying what's been going on. So Stephen Witkoff supposedly spoke to the foreign minister of Iran, who told them that they would stop the killings, or at least stop the public hangings, which it seems is what they actually did. And therefore, Trump said he reduced the pressure on Iran, although Trump preferred to wait for the carrier groups to arrive in the area, which they finally have, which makes it seem like Trump may act very soon. What was interesting is that Trump wanted to act beforehand with land-based weapons. The United States has lots of military bases all around the Middle East, but Qatar and Saudi Arabia and a bunch of other countries in the Gulf have basically said that they will, especially Qatar, that they will not allow the United States to operate from their territories, which is, excuse you, if you're leasing the United States an air base, it's to allow the United States to do whatever they want from that airbase. You're not going to go ahead and dictate. They actually said we will not allow the United States to attack any country from our airbase. So then why are we paying you billions of dollars a year for an airbase? And why are we protecting you, Qatar specifically, which would have been swallowed up by Saudi Arabia if not for the American airbase there, right? So the guts that they have to try and boss around the United States is just remarkable, to be honest. And I really hope that Trump ignores them. And now that he has the backing of the Abraham Lincoln, will utilize the assets that he has in these Air Force bases as well, just to stick it to the Qataris, if not for anything else, because of their audacity that they had to try and tell America what to do and what not to do. But regardless, that kind of backed off. So there is a question which may be asked, that why has all of these countries, these Sunni Arab countries, which putting Qatar aside, let's just say Saudi Arabia, have been terrified of the Iranians. The Iranians were their greatest enemies ever, and the greatest threat to them. They attacked their oil refineries. The Houthis basically crushed the Saudis in the war in Yemen, and the Houthis were obviously sponsored by Iran. What happened that suddenly the Saudis are begging for the United States not to attack Iran? And the answer is, there are actually multiple facets to the answer, but the baseline is they really like the situation as is, where Iran is weak and poor, and where Iranian oil is sanctioned, because if Iranian oil gets released, there are hundreds of millions of barrels that they already have available on like ships that are being stored, and that can flood the market and reduce the price of oil, which would make these countries become a lot less rich than they are. In addition, Iran is the most intelligent, the most well-educated, the largest population in the Middle East. So the worst thing that can happen to Saudi Arabia, who's now getting all this attention because they're like the counterbalance to Iran, is if suddenly Iran is free and is a democracy and supports the West and befriends the United States again, and suddenly is successful, it would dwarf the importance of Saudi Arabia. So there are these, and there are actually a whole bunch of additional reasons as well. Saudi recently pivoted because of the success that Israel and the United States have had against Iran. So they pivoted from wanting peace to suddenly becoming more Islamist. There's a whole bunch. We should probably do an in focus on this at some point, because what's going on there is really fascinating. But it seems like hopefully very soon Trump will take action to topple the Ayatollah's regime, because the people of Iran are free. So I just saw something that 50 years ago, 80% of Iranian population admitted that they were Shia Muslims and were proud Shia Muslims. Now 80% of Iranians admit that they are not Muslim at all. We've seen the number of Christians in Iran surge like crazy, even though anytime the regime finds these hidden Christian communities, they basically murder or massacre every single one of them, because it's according to Islam that is required to murder any apostate, anybody who leaves Islam. We've also seen Iranians move to become Zoroastrian, which is their historical religion. But most of all, they become secular.
We hope you found our clip segment informative. For more content, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and watch the full episode.